All right. Okay, I am here with the amazing Dr. Alex DeFrancisco from Innately Chiropractic, all the way out in Texas. He is another brilliant chiropractor, just like myself, and he has been how long has it been? A year and a half out?
So let's see. In our practice, we're coming up on 2 years in June.
Okay, awesome. It's super exciting. Just
Yeah.
starting a whole career of healing and all this fun stuff. Um, yeah, and the biggest thing I wanted to I want to start also with like the impacts that you've had on me. One thing I think that is like something really unique to who you are is you have this essence about you where your very presence creates structure for others. So I feel like you're the one, like you're usually the one that's leading and like
Mhm.
people forget about you oftentimes, but like you're the reason that like stuff runs smoothly or things went smoothly and like often the one that doesn't get recognition for it, but like you're the reason that things like stick together and you're like so good at it and you're so great with it. So I'd love to hear more on just how you relate to that in your healing practice of like working as a healer, as well as you work with families and you work with kiddos. And I'd love to hear family dynamics and how they're impacted by chiropractic. So whatever comes up for you after, you know, in those two topics.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the kind words. But ultimately, where I've developed that, I mean, I've been very cognizant of what you were just talking about, the idea of structure and leading people. When I was really young, I'm talking like 7, 8, 9 years old. I was pretty good at sports. I wouldn't say I was like spectacular. But my dad, who is still to this day my hero, especially at that time, I mean, that's I think everybody's hero. When you're
Yeah.
7, 8, 9, your mom or your dad, like they're Superman, they're Superwoman, right? And he had said something to the effect of like, you're a leader and you were just born with that. Now, whether he was right or not, it almost doesn't matter because I believed it so internally. Like it was just like if he thought that and actually said that out loud to me, well,
Mhm.
it must be true then. So if it's true, then I have to act like that now.
Yeah.
So it kind of manifested itself into I understood in like Little League Baseball that we would have a better chance at winning if we were a better team and if
Mhm.
everybody was focused and we were all kind of pointed towards the same goal, right? So I kind of found a way to be able to play off different guys and get them to kind of focus in and make it important for them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I've continued that throughout my life, whether it's been sports teams, getting older with high school basketball, baseball, football, what have you, just getting people to focus in on one main objective
Mhm.
and them feeling the power in pulling that rope all together, right? It's
Mhm.
really different when people are, we're trying to do different things and it's like, oh, we want to do this and this and this and this, and you don't go anywhere because when you end up looking around, you look at all of these different ropes and you're just pulling against each other and you haven't moved an inch.
Yeah.
Everybody starts pulling together and you look up, you're like, oh my God, we're 10 miles down the road or
Yeah.
however far.
Yeah.
So I've kept that in mind, even in grad school, in like with the fraternity, right? With
Mhm.
resurrecting a chapter and getting these guys to focus in on one main goal, which was to resurrect a chiropractic fraternity that is based on philosophical principles of chiropractic, right?
Yeah.
That's our goal. We need to start it, and then let's start going in this direction, and we'll set more goals as we start knocking them
Mhm.
down. So the cool thing is, it's been my entire life training for this moment for taking on entire families in a chiropractic practice sense,
Yeah.
where everybody has a goal in mind, right? They're all pushing towards the same thing. They want a happy, healthy family, and that's ultimately, especially the moms. The moms are the ones that want this to work, right? This beautiful thing about chiropractic works whether you believe in it or not. But the mom is really the one who has a vision of where they think their family could go. I just help them realize that. And so now I've almost taken my dad's approach where I know how much it meant to me when he said, well, you were just born to be a leader. That's just the way that you are.
Mhm.
I know how much, like I said, whether he was right or not, I believed it. And I know how big of a deal that was for me. So I make it a point to look at each and every one of our patients and look at them and tell them, like, hey, I believe in you. I think you could be great. I think this could really be great.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think is like the So like there's always I always find it interesting when some people have like a natural inclination towards a skill set and then as well as when people don't and they both develop it, right? Someone who has a natural inclination, they both develop a skill set, right? What do you feel like is possibly like a secret ingredient to leadership that people don't like realize? Because I'm like listening to you and I find it really like it sounds almost like as you're talking, like almost like how you lead is you like direct people through like following them or like having them follow. You're like follow, 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 and then you're like, okay, let's press, like let's push, type of thing. Once everybody gets online and everybody's in the same mode. So I'm curious to like what you would say around the topic of like what do you feel like is an ingredient and I feel like it's really impactful in regards to like health, like being in this healing mindset and like it's so important that we lead in our own lives. And like that's probably the biggest factor. I had a whole podcast about like health habits, and I'm like, really the number one health habit is being able to create health habits. Like that's the one because you can't do anything else until you get that down. So like what do you feel like is the key in aspects of leadership as well as leadership in um, healing paradigm, like looking at healing and all that type of stuff?
So, have you ever seen the movie Bruce Almighty?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I believe Bruce Almighty was with not Steve Carell. It was with Jim Carrey,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This is one of my
The
favorite
first one.
actors, of course.
And there's a moment in that movie when Morgan Freeman is obviously playing God. And one of the things that he says is when people pray for patience, do you think God gives them patience or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? And he kind of lists off a few more things like,
Yeah.
does he give you this or does he give you the opportunity to be this? So I think one of the number one things for me when it comes to, we'll say leadership, let's focus in on leadership, is you're going to be given an opportunity.
Mm,
Take it. If it's there, if you think you can do it, do it. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to mimic somebody. You don't think like, oh well, okay, well, Alex does it this way. I should do it like this, or Keith is really thoughtful. I should do it like this. If you try to be me, you'll be awful at it. You'll be terrible. You'll be
yeah.
terrible. And I've fallen into that mistake. I've fallen into that trap where I've tried to mimic other people and do it just like them. And it comes off inauthentic and people don't react well to it. And on
Yeah.
some level, they don't know why it's not jiving with them, but they
Mm,
just know, they know internally, they know innately, I don't buy it. But when you fully embrace your own leadership style, and you just have to try different types. Are you the very direct type, like we're going to talk about A, B, and C and get over it? Or are you going to be like, hey, let's sit down, let's go off to the side and let's really kind of parse this thing out?
yeah.
Both are correct as
Yeah.
long as you admit to yourself that you are one or the other and you embrace it fully and you try to be you because you'll be the
Yeah.
best you. You'll be the worst somebody else.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, this is crazy. It's funny that we've never gotten in this type of conversation. I feel like I'm seeing a whole new side of you. I'm like, gosh, I'm like, wow. It's like I think I always like imagined that you had like naturalness. Maybe I saw you as such a like powerful leader that like gotten into that mindset of like, oh, he's just got it figured out. He like didn't work at it or anything. But it's like hearing you more, I'm like, wow, he has it like really figured out and really articulated. Yeah, and just I love that type of concept of it reminds me of like there's not really a right or wrong way. Like there's thousands of paths that can be taken to get to the same ocean. What have you noticed in family dynamics? And this is one of my favorite things to talk because I've gotten to adjust multiple families and it's so cool. And I want to hear it from your perspective because you've probably adjusted way more families than I have. And it's fun to like go check mom, check dad, and then check kid and be like, kid has a pattern from mom and pattern from dad. And I'm like what's going on here? And I even growing up with Walter Parrish, like he even talks about how like mom's holding on to patterns and kids responding to mom and being aware of mom and actually it's not what's going on in the kid, it's what's going on in mom, and the kids responding to mom and all that type of stuff. So I'd love to hear more on just your experience of seeing family dynamics and how it comes into chiropractic and adjusting people and seeing how it changes over time. I'd love to hear some stories too.
Well, people like to always joke, like usually talking about their parents, like, oh man, they really screwed me up. Like I didn't have a chance, right? And it is funny, but there is some truth to you have no idea how much these kids pick up on when you
Mm,
have no idea what they're doing. Within those first 3 to 4 years of life, when they're barely talking, they're just a tape recorder. They might not be saying something, but they are taping everything that you're doing, whether you like it or not, or whether you realize it or not. So it really kind of keeps people honest in some aspects where maybe you said something in a particular way, or you reacted a particular way, or you have adverseness to particular ways of doing things. That will show up very specifically in your child, right? Um, and so it's very interesting to see, and being aware of that, and walking the line of, inviting mom and dad to maybe think about doing things like this, or maybe doing things like
mm.
that, instead of saying like, hey, you're screwing up your kid, don't do stuff like this. You can't, it's not really
Yeah,
your
yeah,
place.
the gentle
uh,
conversation.
yeah. And the cool thing about seeing families is they get to see other families, right?
Mm,
So the cool thing with what we do, that we get to do as chiropractors, is people get to come to see us, and they don't have to be sick, and they don't have to be broken, and they don't have to be have, things falling apart in order to come and see us. They get to come and see us whether they're sick, healthy, indifferent, right? So what's really cool is people get to come, when they're not in those awful states, right? So they're a little bit more receptive. They're a little bit more willing to look at things because, they're not overly sick, and they get to see how different families react, and they get to see like, oh wow, other people come in and do this, and there's something I think
mm,
reaffirming to
yeah,
that that other people do this, and that other people want to take their health seriously.
yeah. What's coming to mind now is like I'm thinking about like the community aspects. So something I've been particularly drawn to recently is just like how does healing function differently in a community? Because there's like, it's kind of interesting. And you do open bay adjusting, correct? If I
Yeah.
remember correctly, which I think is like really powerful. I know some people get weird about it, but like I think it's super powerful because I think at some point in like human evolution and society evolution, it was really normal to like be open about healing and different types of things. And I know people got ostracized for like leprosy or different more extreme diseases, and like there was a lot of communal. And then we moved to this like phase where we were like private room. Like this is your problems and your issues over here, that thing. And I think there's so much power that I feel like I'm discovering, maybe rediscovering, maybe however you want to put it, in like community space of seeing like, what if this person over here starts talking about how they've been suffering with this, and this person over here says, "Oh my gosh, I've been experiencing the same thing," and they feel less alone. And so I'm imagining like the same thing. You're just nodding like a bobblehead over here.
Mhm.
I imagine the same thing happens when you get like a family and a family, and they're seeing the family dynamics of another family, and they're like, "Oh, like how have I been working with my kids? And like, is that okay?" Or like, or they feel like awkward in the way they're acting with their kid, or like, like different family dynamics. And I think it opens up the opportunity, although discomfort, like uncomfortable at times, it opens the opportunity for a healing moment. It's like a moment where it's like self-reflection and self-recognition. And that's everything we do, which is getting the brain turned back on the body, make sure that the intelligence of the body is seeing itself. So it's like when we open up this space of like community, it has this opportunity to like self-reflection. So I'd be interested in like um hearing a little bit more on community dynamics, especially doing open bay adjusting. Because I know I do it myself, and I'd love to hear your take a little bit more on that, even deeper, and like the importance of having communal healing.
So not only do you get the aspect that you had alluded to, like, wow, they're dealing with that too, right? So now I feel less alone. Sometimes you'll see somebody else dealing with something that is like, in your opinion, 3 to 5 times worse than what you're dealing with.
Yeah,
And you kind of sit back and think like, oh man. And she brought in her 4 kids. And it's just
yeah.
me coming in for me. And she's got all of these kids, and she's keeping track of them, and she's doing all of these different things. I can't remember where I heard this line, but it was, I believe it was a mom talking to her son, and she basically said if everybody put all of their problems into a pile, you would not only take yours back, you would run the other way with them. So it also offers an opportunity for you to kind of sit back and be self-reflective and like, you know what? It's not that bad. I'm
Hmm.
okay, right? And
Yeah.
it's not like, oh haha, like they're doing worse. It's just like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
like it could be worse. And I'm actually in a good place and it looks like they're getting better. So I must be getting better also, right? If they're making these strides, well, then it must be possible for me to make these strides because if
Yeah.
they have all of these other things going on, well, then
Hmm.
I only have a couple of things. I must be getting better, right? So
Yeah.
it just gives a sense of permission.
Yeah.
It's so strange that humans need permission to do anything. It's your own life. You have free will, free autonomy. Do whatever you want. But people always ask, "Can I do this?" I found myself doing it in practice. Like, oh, can I, not can I do these things, but I'd have other docs come in and say, like, hey, why aren't you doing it like this? Oh, can I? Can
Am I
I?
allowed to
And
do that? Yeah.
they're like, it's your practice. You do whatever you want. Yeah, obviously within reason. There are rules that govern society, but outside of that, do it your own way, right? So there's a
Yeah.
permission aspect where it's like, okay, we're allowed to do this, right? And the world is getting more and more secluded, more and more alone, more and more screens.
Mhm.
I saw Zuckerberg talking about whatever that Oculus thing that's gonna like basically like suck your soul out of your eyeballs, right? And you have your cell phone like in front of you, and you're gonna be able to do all of these
Yeah.
weird sweet things. And to me, it's a really scary concept because I got to imagine people they're not going to want to hang out anymore. I think hanging out is
Mhm.
is now like turning into some sort of novel niche idea where people just go and just have conversations, right? And we have a concept in our practice that we call the 6 minute vacation, which is your adjustment. Your phone can't get to you, your kids can't get to you, your life can't get to you. It's just you and you getting adjusted, doing something for you for 6 minutes. Nothing else can touch you. I promise for those 6 minutes, those kids won't come near you. I will take care of it. Right.
Yeah.
And for those other 6 minutes, those kids get to play with other kids. Those moms get to talk to other moms. And so there's a reminder of the permission, right? It's like we're allowed to talk to other people. We're allowed to have these interactions. It's okay. People are okay. And every other aspect of society has led us to believe the opposite, right? Don't stand there 6 feet this way, don't cough that, don't do this,
Mhm.
you're not healthy, you don't look that way.
Yeah.
There's just so much division, and for just at the very least we get to cultivate a space, both you and I, in our practices where people can just come and just be
Mm.
just lows down for 5 mother loving minutes, just relax. And and people don't realize how much they need that until they realize, oh my God, I need that. And
Yeah.
so I think that's something that we have really tried to emphasize in our space. It's like when you're here, and I hate that Olive Garden came up with it before I did because it's just the best slogan ever. When you're here, your family. And I want that so badly to be our slogan because it's just so great.
I mean, you could
Uh,
try to purchase it, but it's probably gonna be a little tricky.
oh my God. It's like, it's just the best, but it's the truth. And we say that the minute somebody signs up, we're like, hey, welcome to the family. And we mean that. We had we had a family, so it was a mom and her two girls, and it was so cool. Her mom swiped up on a Facebook ad for her youngest daughter who was dealing with a couple of different diagnoses, one being mild autism, and she was having a lot of headaches and digestion problems. And she said, I don't know if you can help with any of those things, but your ad said that you could probably help, so I'll give it a shot. And so her daughter started to see really great results. She goes, I have an older daughter who's kind of a moody preteen. Do you think you could help with that too? I go, my wife specializes in preteens. Bring her in. Then she started to get really great results. And then her mom's like, well, I want that too. Why do they, it's like, I love my daughters, but why don't I get to be a
Yeah.
part of that? So all three of them eventually ended up getting under care with us. And we're three of our all-time favorite patients. Today was their last uh, visits with us because they're moving. And I was just thinking, and this could be egotistical, but how many times have people cried and got like choked up when like having to leave their doctor? right? Like they were
Mm,
leaving. Like this was their last appointment for probably a long time with us.
yeah.
And mom, she didn't break down, but she definitely started to cry. And she's like, I'm really gonna miss you guys. How often does that happen in a doctor's office? How often is it actually the doctor with you? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think it's permission and it's a reminder for people that you're allowed to do these things.
Hmm. And like extending on that, I think something's really unique is like our goal is connection in chiropractic. Like our goal is to connect this intelligence of the body back to itself, back to the body itself. And like a byproduct of that is we like connect more communally. Like we
Mm-hmm.
don't we all of a sudden accidentally we're like, oh, we're like connecting as humans even more so and even better. And I think I had one of my clients say that before. They're like, I think if my doctor like cried over me, like cried over this, I forgot the specific situation, but like cried for me or cried for me. They're like, I think I'd literally stay with them forever because just the impact of realizing this person is so concerned with me or this level of connection is here. And I'll be honest, I've had a few clients where I was like, I've been very emotional with a lot of clients because I'm like, I have a lot of care for them. I have a lot of care. And the more present I am with each client and the more I learn about people's backstory, it's crazy what people are going through. It's really wild that people go through. And even more so beyond the physical pain, what they go through mentally, being in the physical pain is like, oh, it's so heavy. Like it's so heavy because I got folks, especially the older folks that come in. I don't know if you have a lot of older folks, but older folks that come in, they're just in so much pain. And like I had one client tell me, they're like, I literally, everybody I go see, everybody I'm in relation to, I pay. They're like, it's all practitioners. And I just sat there and I stepped back and I just listened to her because I like, she needed to be heard, not because she was paying me, but because she needed to be heard as a human being, and really be connected with on that level. And it's it's amazing how this thing like it's always silly. It's like the free things that are actually the stuff that really kicks it into gear, not the super expensive surgery or super expensive drugs or super expensive chemo treatment or something like that, right? It's like some of the basic things it comes back down to. And one of those is like just having a conversation with somebody and like genuine human to human conversation where somebody bursts into tears and they have that connection of like we really care about each other and we have this trust and we have this bond that's been created in a unique way, in a beautiful way.
And sometimes people don't realize it until they're saying it. And that's usually what ends up resulting in the tears, where it's like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden they can't stop. Right. And
Yeah.
so we've made the shift to I've got at least two or three tissue boxes in our exam room. Especially again, I'll keep coming back to moms where they'll start
Yeah.
talking about things and I'm like, and I haven't said anything. All of a sudden they're crying. And it's like, feel better? Yeah,
Yeah.
because for whatever reason, they've been told either they're wrong, they're crazy, they worry too much,
Yeah.
anxiety, this, depression, that. And some of those things are valid, but also it's almost now, I don't want to say an excuse for other practitioners, but it's just like, you're depressed. Here you go. Get out.
Yeah.
You got anxiety. Here you go. Here's some drugs. So go on, get out.
Mhm.
It's like,
We
man, no, maybe I was just having a really hard go of it that month. And you
mhm.
just labeled me depressed. Maybe I just needed somebody to hear me that wasn't my husband or wasn't my wife or wasn't my mom or dad. Maybe I just needed to say something to somebody, and that was all I needed. Now it checked back into alignment. And so that's again, it keeps coming back to permission. People will say like, I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like I'm thinking clear, or I feel like I'm
Mm,
handling stress better. And they're almost saying it like they're almost asking me like, am I crazy? Is this a
mm.
placebo thing? It's like, no, you're allowed to feel that way.
Yeah.
You're allowed to it is working. You can admit that to yourself. It's not crazy. I won't pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah. I got you. It was actually a placebo. Yeah, the whole time. Like it's like what? Every
Yeah,
time.
no, you're happier because you're happier. You're sleeping better because you're sleeping better. These are things they're happening. Jump on
Yeah.
the train.
Yeah. What's I'm curious because I do this in my own practice is like instilling you're talking about this concept of like permission, and how do you feel like you instill permission through your presence?
One of the biggest ones, in my opinion, is eye contact. So
Mm,
I very much try to have my notes done before they come in. I have pretty much everything that I need written down. There's always a couple of things that you have to fill in the moment, but I always try to return back to eye contact and let somebody. And what can be unsettling for people is like, oh shit, he's listening. Like, oh, it's almost like you can almost. It's like they're like they have to watch what they say because they're like, oh crap, he's going to hear me, which
mm,
is somehow now a novel and new concept for people that
yeah,
somebody's going to hear them, right?
yeah,
So that's one of the biggest things is making eye contact, repeating something back to them, and then saying like, so that must make you feel X, Y, or Z, and taking your best shot at it. It's like, if you can't sleep for the past 4 months, you're probably kind of like on your edge, right? You're probably not feeling great, right? Yeah, you wouldn't say like, oh, I haven't been sleeping well. Oh, so you're probably really happy. No, use your best
yeah,
guesses. Those would be, I think, the best two is eye contact,
yeah,
feeding back, and then expanding on what they said.
yeah. I'm like humored by the uh, like taking you in and just like seeing the beyond the intense structure of yourself. Like there's such a big heart in there and like passion to serve and intensity to serve. We're coming close to the end of our time here. I would love to hear what is your biggest recommendation on living the limitless life?
I would say get good at being you. I would really say get good at being you because when I first opened this practice, we really struggled. I mean, our first year and a half, Keith, I won't lie to you, was not good. It was not good. It was not fun. We were really struggling and just trying to make ends meet. And it was because I was trying to be all of these different doctors that I had seen on my way up. And I thought, if I could just be them and recreate their practice, I'll have their life. And that's just not how it works. And the more I started to be me and the more I started to embrace myself, along with setting up particular systems, because you can't just freeball it. You need to give yourself guidelines so that you know how to act in certain situations, right? So if you can set up your systems that allow you to be you, that's when I think the limitless starts to come into play because there is an untapped source of potential energy in you. It's in there. You just have to find it, but it's yours. It's your code. It's your fuel. It's not somebody else's key. You can't use somebody else's stuff. You can use it to help you access and find different ways of unlocking different parts of yourself. But the more you try to mimic somebody else, truly the worse results you'll get. These last 2 months in practice, I mean, we've seen more people in the month of February, more people in the month of February than we did in January, February, and March of last year combined. Because me and Bree finally stopped trying to be X, Y's, and Z's.
Yeah.
We finally started to be Alex and Bree, and we started to be Alex and Bree. That's when the practice started to move in the right direction, and you can feel it. You can feel that shift where it's like, okay, this is me. This is my life. So giving yourself permission and understanding that you're enough, and tell people that they're enough. People don't get told that enough. Some people go their entire lives without being told that. And I have lived, I think, a really privileged life to have two parents that, at the very least, told me that over and over. You can do it. We believe in you. You can do it. We believe in
Mm,
you. I don't think people get told that enough. And so it starts to perpetuate and it just runs in this never ending cycle of I can't do it, I'm not enough.
mm.
Tell people that they're enough and then believe it and then write it down. And maybe one day you'll convince yourself of it and everything changes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Own yourself. I'm right there with you. Well, thank you so much for your time. Of course, that is Alex D from Cisco from Innately Chiropractic.
Honor and a privilege, my brother.
We do have a few more minutes. Where can people find you if they are out in Texas?
So yeah, so we're in Grapevine, Texas. So if you fly into DFW Airport, you can pretty much throw a baseball and hit our practice. So we're very close, in between both Dallas and Fort Worth. We're on all the socials. You can find us on Instagram at Innately Chiropractic. TikTok is Dr. Alex and Dr. Bree. What else we got? We got Facebook. That's Innately Chiropractic. You can find us on all of those things. You can find us on our website. And if you fail to find any of those things, respond to this podcast, and Keith can give you my number directly. I
Yeah, of course, of course. If you're living under a rock and not
don't have any
connected
of
to
those things.
anything.
I'm not that famous yet,
Yeah,
so people can have my personal line. I give it to patients all the time.
awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you.